As I put this up, a lot has been said about the subject matter, so there is not much point in repeating them. Most of the public know who they are now. Frankly, the only mystery is why everyone is so shocked and scandalised. We know they began on Onlyfans, and it gives me no pleasure to admit this. The only successful social media platform to come from the UK got successful from sex shows. It should be expected it would come to this level of degeneracy. What does interest me is how male commentators recognise that the men are being preyed upon, both financially and sexually, while females choose to demonise and shame these victims while only expressing disappointment in Bonnie Blue and Lily Phillips, no doubt for letting down the so-called sisterhood. Here's why I know otherwise. Back in the 60s and 70s, a major byproduct of the sexual revolution was the emergence of a strange tradition of hedonism called groupieism, whereby female fans of a male rock or pop group / artist would go backstage before or after a show to have sex with the performers in question. The Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, and most notably Motley Crue, to name but a few, are among the enormous number of musicians who use their profile to indulge in the dubious practice of groupie sex while on tour. In the vast majority of cases, it was almost entirely male artists who enjoyed this. Female artists are hard to count because very few would admit to what goes on backstage due to cultural reasons, but it is not unheard of. Rock Bitch were particularly notorious for their shows, which ended with at least one audience member invited backstage for sex. Then there was Lily Allen, who confessed she once indulged in a drug and drink-fueled romp with 10 women while on a stressful tour. But such cases can always be counted on the fingers of one hand and feature far less numbers of groupie visitors until now. The emergence of the terminally online culture of Gen Z has led to women choosing to abstain from any kind of sex, at least for now, while Gen Z men are becoming desperate and increasingly falling into incel or involuntarily celibate spaces. Predictably, this has left a void which OnlyFans personalities like Blue and Phillips have jumped to capitalize on, raking huge amounts of cash for their hookup content. Groupieism has seen two types of women: the sheep who follow the herd backstage for safety reasons, and the high school grad type who are desperate to lose their virginity as a rite of passage, and who better than with their favourite rock star. Consequently, there are reports of crowds of girls lining up backstage with only the ones who had valid ID allowed through. This is less so now in the 2020s. The height was in the 80s and 90s. Instead, we now see the same thing, but with the genders reversed. Male university frat boys are doing what their pre-millennium female counterparts did decades before, and other ones lining up to lose their virginity as their rite of passage. The fact they are allowing themselves to be filmed for a porn upload doesn't seem to occur to them until afterwards. In a minority of cases, the males regret their actions and beg for their videos to be taken down. These are not the reactions of participants who are in control of what is happening to them. Even the ones who deny regretting the experience still call it surreal, suggesting that they are not as comfortable as they are letting on. Masculine bravado veiling their vulnerability beneath. Women looking to break records for sleeping with up to 100 men is not a new phenomenon. I remember hearing of a case in New York in the mid-90s in which a woman attempted this in one night, apparently with success. Phillips and Blue's attempts were for one day. In the former, the case was long before social media, when much more time was needed to find the men, most of whom would have already been involved in porn and sex work themselves. In the current age, the male loneliness epidemic is fueling the new rise in male groupieism. And with this comes the concern that they are being both financially and sexually exploited. Blue insists she is doing a service by giving these incel men education about sex. She insists they are all ID'd at the door, but this is undermined by her claim she goes for barely legal boys. She claims she is 25, but most commentators have pointed out she looks like she is in her mid-30s. Furthermore, it is easier than one thinks to convincingly fake ID. The only case I know of where men live streamed sex was on Twitch, and no, I did not watch it. And fake ID issues were a problem in that case. We rightly look back on the Rockstar groupie age with a revised outlook. But at least then, there was musical artistry as a culture. Now there is only the commodification of the sex aspect. Onlyfans women are now the new rock stars, and the groupies are now men.